Welcome to the Charles River Conservancy Parkland Show. My name is Renata from Tscharner. I'm the founder and president of the Charles River Conservancy. And as you know from previous shows, the Charles River Conservancy works from the harbor up to the Watertown Dam. We are a non-profit organization started in 2000. And we bring a lot of volunteers to do landscaping. In fact, 2,000 a year to improve the parklands. But you might have heard about the Conservancy because of the recent skate park that was built and opened in November 2015, and about bringing back swimming. And that's what we're talking about today. I want to welcome our guest today, Jeffrey Simon. He is the senior principal of Stantec. He was the assistant Secretary of Transportation in charge of real estate in the Valpatrick administration, and he was in charge of the wonderful North Bank Bridge that spans from Cambridge to Charlestown. So a lot of interesting projects.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with you.
And so we're going to wander down the river past the Museum of Science to an area that you see circled here. When we were looking for a place to swim, we were looking for an area that already has wonderful parklands, that has good access to transportation, 4 T-stops, deep water. And we approached Stantec, and so we worked with Stantec on the skate park, but then Stantec offered to do a feasibility study. Tell us about why Stantec does that and how you went about doing that.
This was something that we were trying as a pilot program for our company. You know, we're a very large 24,000 person company all across the United States. We've always done different kinds of community service. We have an extensive community day. Last year I was over at Franklin Park raking some of the trash up there. This is an attempt to use the skills that we have to do that community service. It's called skills-based volunteering.
Yeah.
And it basically harbors the intellectual capacity of our group as opposed to our brawn. To do things like work with you on a swimming proposal.
Yeah, and you had engineers, you had permitting lawyers. Yeah,
we had lawyers. We had some people who have done a lot of water quality work.
Some engineers, yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And me, who knew the least about all of this, because my background is as a real estate developer, and so what I was really good at is project management and just keeping on track and understanding the vision.
Yeah.
And keeping us moving toward that vision.
And it was facilitated by Common Impact, which was very helpful, kind of the go-between between the client and the consultants.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. As you know, we had a lot of interaction with your board and your staff, and that was really enjoyable, and we're very appreciative of that experience.
Well, it was a wonderful team. So we looked at the area here, it is the new basin, and we looked at where in that new basin might be a good place to locate a swimming facility. And you want to kind of start of where your team got started on that?
Sure. We did a site visit one day and went down and looked at a number of different areas and boiled it down to 5 different choices, which we called A, B, C, D, and E. One was across the river on the Nashua Street Park. But it just, as we started to really get into it a little bit, particularly standing there and looking at the dynamic, which it's difficult to capture on paper, we all kind of gravitated to the Cambridge side of the river. We also, as we were talking about before, we also liked that site because it was part in Cambridge, part in Boston.
Well, because the border of Cambridge and Boston actually goes through North Point Park and is not in the middle of the river like further upriver.
That's right.
Yeah.
We actually opened the North Point Bridge with Governor Patrick, we did a walk across the bridge, and we started in Cambridge and walked to Boston. And there was a delegation from Cambridge and a delegation from Boston.
Yeah,
so this was a great site.
Yeah.
We looked at all of the different attributes, and as I know you remember, we met with you and we talked about all what we saw as the positives and the challenges for each one of the locations, and gradually settled on Site B, which is on the right adjacent to the park, for a whole lot of reasons that made sense.
Yeah. Now let's just go back just a moment of why swimming. A lot of, when you say swimming, for many people that's still, oh, you can't swim in the Charles, love that dirty water. But in fact, what we're looking at here is the recent swim race, the largest swim race with 180 people. And that was a great success. And we're going to have another community swim on July the 12th. Over 1,000 people have participated because they love swimming. And you can see that people really enjoy it. And everybody who ever swam in the Charles says, why can't we swim there all the time? Or just sit on the water and enjoy it. So we started to look at other cities. And I know they were very much part of your report to look at other cities of what they've done.
That's right. Our team looked around the world at London, Geneva,
and we got Copenhagen here.
Copenhagen. Yeah, this is Copenhagen that we're looking at right now, and took inspiration from lots of the different elements that are in each one of these. We looked at, for example, in the picture that you're looking at, you see that having the steps that are fairly high, and then having people be able to jump off, as well as being able to swim in the lap area. It just adds another dimension to the whole experience.
And what was these examples? This one is from Berlin.
Right. This is Berlin, and we particularly like the ease of access. You can see that there are steps leading right down to the water. It kind of reminded us of some of the elements of the Nashua Street Park. With that easy access, and that's what drew us to the Nashua Street location in the beginning.
And what both the Copenhagen and the Berlin examples show, it's part of the city, just like in Switzerland, where I'm from. Swimming in the river is just part of city life. It's not something you go to in a fenced-in area. It's just part of everyday life. It's a bit different here for this project in London. I think you took some of these elements of the plantings into your design.
Particularly the landscape architects who worked on this really loved the wildness of the London facility. It just seemed to bring the natural vegetation into the whole experience, even though it's obviously all created and built.
Yeah, and the vegetation is there, maybe some for beauty, but it also has a filtering component.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we talked about all kinds of different ways to look at the water and to deal with the water, because there are days when the water is not swimmable. It is most of the time during the swimming season, it is swimmable, as you know far better than I do. But there are different models that we looked at. One was to kind of build a basket.
They'll have some images of that, later on.
One was uses filters, and then there's various nettings and those kinds of things.
And describe a little bit of how does your team, they all have full-time jobs. How does that work? How did they work on that project?
Well, Stantec made a commitment to this as a company, and so some of this was done during work time, and then I have to say that that the enthusiasm that the members of our team showed was just infectious. So they would often be there on their own time, well after work hours had ended.
Wow!
So it was very, it was a tremendous collaborative team effort.
Well, it was wonderful to see that team so enthusiastic and how the interaction really worked with our staff. So that was an amazing experience. And we presented this feasibility study both to DCR and also to the Charles River Watershed Association, because they have worked so hard on the water quality. And Bob Zimmerman made the interesting remark, you know, swimming is just 1/8 of the tip of the iceberg, all the work that has gone into it, and that still is necessary to really make that river swimmable, because we wouldn't think it a success unless the river becomes even more swimmable. Yep. So it has been a $500 million effort so far to clean up that river.
That's
and
amazing.
It's amazing of what has been accomplished. So more to come, but this is kind of like the triumph of making the river swimmable.
You know, I meant to mention to you before that a lot of your viewers will probably remember that famous picture of Governor Weld diving into the river in the 90s. I happened to be with Governor Weld 2 weeks ago, and I mentioned to him that you were doing this and that it had really progressed tremendously since he dove in and really kicked off the swimming season.
Oh yes,
in a big way.
His diving in was enormous. I mean, the Clean Water Act really launched the effort. And then John de Villars with his Swimmable Charles initiative in 1995 to say by 2005 he wants the river to be swimmable. I mean, there have been a lot of people working on that and have done wonderful work. Without all of that, we wouldn't be where we are.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. It's a long commitment that's gone across many governors, and their commitment has been really admirable.
Yes, and the current administration, the Secretary of Environment, Matthew Beaton, he was at the community swim last year.
Oh, great.
And there were 7 cameras rolling on the dock, and he was giving a press conference, treading water, and he says, there needs to be swimming all the time in the Charles.
That's great.
So we took this exclamation and we brought it to Stantec, and you helped us create a feasibility study.
Great, yeah, it has, it's really picked up a head of steam in so many ways. It really has.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's look at the site that we have in mind.
Okay.
So we are on the Green Line Viaduct, looking down into the new basin. There is the prison and also Spalding, and we're looking at the very site where the swimming will take place. And
this is a really good a good view to be able to understand how important the park is to the location of the swimming area. That's a beautiful, huge park, both with the island that was created and the upland part. That just makes a natural place for families to gather.
And I think it's also interesting for many Canterburyans. This used to be a trash transfer station. So this park was created with $100 million of mitigation funds from the Big Dig, and now it's a wonderful park which has already 2 playgrounds on it. It has the skate park on it. We have EF1, the Halt, and EF2 with a restaurant right on the water. So it already has a lot of amenities that will be available to swimmers.
That's absolutely right, and it really is a hidden jewel. Most people don't even realize that a park of that quality is right there, and I know that when they see it for the first time, they're just amazed. And
that's also a reason why we picked that location, because it's still an underused park. A lot of people know the Esplanade because of the 4th of July and many other reasons. And at the Esplanade, there really isn't, it would be hard to find deep enough water to have a deep water swim. There used to be swimming on the Esplanade, and it was more of a beach swimming. I mean, there were thousands and thousands of people swimming until the 1950s, when it became clear that the water wasn't clean enough. So let's see, we have a picture looking now the other direction. We are exactly opposite now. The last picture, we were on the roof of that brick building, and now we're looking from Cambridge over to North Point Park.
Now this is a really good demonstration of the access that this area has. You can see that there is a float in the water just across the river and a ramp leading down to that float. And the fact that that's already been built and is maintained by the DCR,
yeah.
Conservation and Recreation, is a really important factor to keep in mind, because it would be incredibly expensive to try to recreate that with that seawall there and the wrought iron fence and a ramp that would be needed as well.
Yeah, and this seawall, the piece we see there, not the perpendicular one, but the long seawall, is the old seawall. And as part of planning that North Point Park, I think it was Julia O'Brien, the senior planner at the time, said, let's lower this seawall so you can see the water. The seawall used to be a whole other row of stones higher, so you would be in the park and not actually even see the water. So now the water is visually accessible, and as you say, there's already an accessible dock there to get into the water. And now we need to make sure we have the depth everywhere and we have the right facility to create a swimming. So here is the plan. And tell us of how your designers came to that plan.
So every plan starts with a program. And the program, which we spoke with you and your staff and your board members about, had a number of elements. One is that you certainly wanted to be able to accommodate adults and children. And they have different needs when it comes to swimming. Even within the swimming population, there are different swimming needs. So some people like to swim laps, some people like to jump off the side, some people like to just tread water and paddle around and get cool.
Yeah.
And what we tried to do here was to accommodate as many of those as we possibly could. As you can see, it builds off of the existing ramp that I mentioned just a minute ago. So the access is direct to the grove and the picnic lawn, and then with a little bit of a walk to the lawn that's on the island. We can easily envision families spreading their blankets and their towels out on the lawn, and going down, taking a swim, coming back, having a picnic, going back for another swim,
yeah.
And really making it an outing on a hot summer day.
Yeah, and when you see at the top of the picture in pink or light purple, it says playground. There are actually 2 playgrounds there, so there are already other amenities for families nearby to enjoy.
That's right. And I think the pink one, I think that's where the splash park is as well, isn't it?
The playground contains a spray pool, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's, that water element just kind of carries through here, and you can see that what we've done is taken this island concept and extended it out into the Charles River with a shallow end and a deep end, and brought in some of the natural vegetation that we saw in London. Yeah. And used that, tried to draw it in, and then created an area with steps that makes it easy for people to enter and to exit the water. Those steps are in the shallow end, so that just like a swimming pool that has a shallow and a deep end, you'll be able to walk in and gradually get to the deep end.
Yeah, and you had mentioned of how where you stand on is not going to be the sediments or sand or beach. You're actually standing on a artificial platform.
That's right. You'll recall one of the most important directives that we had is that we can't touch the bottom. We don't want to be anywhere near the bottom, and we want to keep people away from it. So that was a real design constraint that our team, the Stantec team, was very conscious of when they were looking at alternative designs.
Yeah.
Now this is deep water. It accommodates different swimmers. It builds on the existing park, and it has lots of different elements for different people's interests.
Yeah. So this is the rendering without all the arrows.
Yep.
And this is the cover of the feasibility study. which is a very detailed study which also looks at permitting, it looks at water depth, it looks at engineering components, and so that study will be available. But it is often the renderings and the excitement of being able to swim that will make people want to contribute, because we are going to have a Indiegogo campaign so that people can contribute to that. So this is the image we want you to carry, and imagine that in a few years we need to do a bit more studies. I mean, your feasibility study concluded it's feasible, but we have to do some additional studies.
You know, as you well know, there are so many demands on every dollar, public dollar or private dollar today. This though, I think will give policymakers and private fundraisers a better idea of what could be done.
Yeah. So we are very grateful to Stantec for doing that, and we are launching now the Indiegogo campaign, and this is the Stantec information, and we are announcing that campaign and feasibility study will continue. We will continue to follow up on the recommendations. We will be working with the Charles River Watershed Association on the water quality issue, and also building more awareness of all the things that affect our water quality, because it's not just there are many components to it.
Absolutely.
And only if we are all aware of it and work towards that in terms of green infrastructure, that we can accomplish that.
You know, from our company's point of view, Stantec, this was a great success. We had so much enthusiastic participation. People learned a lot. We all worked together, and it's something that I wouldn't be surprised if you see in other parts of the United States being undertaken by Stantec groups all over the country.
Well, that's wonderful. So I want to thank you, Jeffrey, for leading that team, for coming today, and we are very thrilled to take that to the next stage. We have a very enthusiastic board and staff to work on that. This was the first feasibility study, and the fact it is feasible, and now we need to follow up on that. And here is the information about the Charles River Conservancy. If you want more details, you go to our website, and that is where you find it. And we look forward to keep working on that.
That's great, and I have to really thank the team. As I said, I had none of the technical ability to do this. They have all of the ability, and they are just an incredibly skilled and smart group of young individuals.
Thank you, Jeffrey. That was a great pleasure.